Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Saturday, April 1st, 2023. If you want additional weather information on top of what I provide, you can go to weather.gov, and it'll bring you to a map of the continental U.S. with Alaska and Hawaii in the lower left. You point and click anywhere on this map, it'll bring up forecasts with any relevant watches, warnings, or advisories for anywhere in the country. This Saturday afternoon, we have tornado watches of all places here. New Jersey, Delaware, portions of Maryland, and there have been a number of tornado warnings issued. Yesterday, there was quite an outbreak of severe weather, including a number of significant tornadoes from southern Wisconsin, Illinois, down into Arkansas, western Tennessee, with over 20 fatalities reported. Further west, we have some more energy coming down through the central Rockies, and we have a variety of wind advisories, high wind warnings, winter storm watches, winter storm warnings. Another system is going to be emerging and pushing across the central and northern plains in the week ahead, likely triggering another round of severe weather in portions of the Midwest come Tuesday. Here in Alaska, blowing snow will continue along the west coast this evening before diminishing later tonight, and then along the northwest coast through Sunday morning. Across the central and eastern interiors, we'll see areas of light snow spreading eastward later tonight through Sunday and into early Monday, with accumulations of 1 to 4 inches, nothing too terribly heavy. Just a reminder, still not completely done with some winter weather. Next, low pressure system of substance will impact areas of the Aleutians, the Alaska Peninsula, and southwest coast, especially Monday into Tuesday. And then we're looking for near or below normal temperatures to continue throughout most of the state here through at least mid-April. This Saturday afternoon, Kotzebue, blizzard conditions for a time where a blizzard warning has been in effect. We expect winter weather advisories to be posted thereafter for this evening into Sunday morning. Winds gusting at times over 40 miles an hour with snow and significant blowing snow. In the far southern panhandle, Ketchikan enjoying some sunshine, but notice these puffy cumulus clouds, vertical development there. That's an indication, a little heating, and it's kind of a sign of early spring. We're seeing temperatures there in the lower 40s. We still, though, really have to see a mild stretch of weather set up here anywhere in the state. That just hasn't quite happened with consistency yet. And looking out to the west, we have a variety of winter weather advisories for snow and blowing snow. Areas south of the Bering Strait prior to midnight this Saturday night, and then north of there, especially north side of the Seward Peninsula, Shishmaref on over toward Kotzebue, on up toward Kivalina, Point Hope. The winter weather advisories will continue overnight in through Sunday morning. And on the map, or satellite imagery, we do have one lingering area of low pressure sitting out here across areas of the Gulf, west and southwest of the Panhandle and Haida Gwaii. And then we have a low pressure over the lower Chukchi Sea that's working its way inland, and a little front that's pushing in through Norton Sound, the lower Yukon Delta. And then back here, frontal system, the main low is still west-southwest of Shimia, with a frontal system arcing through the central Aleutians. And this will be the main weather system to impact the southwest coast as we go into especially later Sunday night and on Monday. But here comes this next system, bringing that area of moisture that'll press inland as some snow. The low is situated this afternoon just on the north side of the Seward Peninsula up there through the lower Bering Sea. And then we have the other low that's sitting here west and southwest of the Panhandle. And then another one out here that's located there just approaching the western Aleutians. This frontal system is going to gradually lift northeastward and push into the southwest coast, as I mentioned, Sunday night and into Monday. Meanwhile, the moisture that's up here coming inland with that front the front will wash out to a trough, but that'll press eastward, bringing central and eastern portions of the interior, especially between the Alaska Range and the Brooks Range, some additional light snow over the next couple of days. And then by Monday, the low that crossed the western Aleutians will be up toward the central Bering with an arcing front, and a secondary low developing south of Kodiak Island that'll push into the central Gulf on Tuesday. Low temperatures tonight should generally be back down near or below freezing in the Panhandle. Could be some patchy fog. Areas further west, 9 above the Glen Ellen, the Copper River Basin. Temperatures, though, Sunday afternoon should get back up in the 40s across much of the Panhandle. Upper 30s to near 40s, some areas, especially coastal areas here of the western, northwestern Gulf. Low temperatures again Monday morning, single digits up there at Glen Ellen, generally near or a bit below freezing in through the Panhandle. Still getting down to the teens to near 20 degrees across areas of south central, but we should at least get daytime highs back up in the mid-30s to continue that freeze-thaw cycle we've been seeing. In the far north, not quite as cold as what it's been. We still have some temperatures that are below zero overnight tonight, but temperatures should get back up to near or a bit above 30, especially around Fairbanks on up toward the Yukon Flats. And further west, temperatures are a bit cooler, but are slowly moderating. Overnight lows should generally be in the single digits above or below zero across much of the north Monday morning. And then by Monday afternoon, we expect temperatures, especially on the other side of the Alaska Range, Nanana on up toward, say, Fairbanks. You should be back up around or a bit above freezing, and also extending to along the Alcan border at places like Eagle and Northway. But back toward the west, the coldest temperatures are going to hug here along the Arctic coast and down toward the Bering Strait. Across the southwest interior Sunday morning, teens, generally at or above freezing, especially out through the Aleutians. And then Sunday afternoon, ahead of that front, along that frontal system, temperatures will get up into the low and middle 40s. Up the Yukon, Kuskokwim Basin, temperatures approaching 30. Warmest, they're down around Dillingham and King Salmon, at least mid to maybe upper 30s. And then Monday morning lows will be coming upwards with the increasing cloud cover. There could be a period, though, of some light accumulating snow along the southwest coast later Sunday night and especially Monday morning, along with some blowing snow. But then eventually that's going to bring in a little milder air and get temperatures back up above freezing in the mid and upper 30s. A quick check, though, looking at the temperature outlook for April 7th through the 11th as we approach mid-month. Below normal temperatures across much of the state, centered on the southwest interior, lower Yukon Basin, near normal in through the Panhandle and out across the Aleutians. And then precipitation could average a bit above normal across areas of the central and eastern mainland, including parts of the Panhandle. A little below normal here back toward the Yukon Delta. And the temperature outlook for the month of April is calling for temperatures to average above normal in the northwest, especially Shishmaref through Kotzebue on up toward Wainwright, and below normal across much of south central, centered on the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, out to maybe toward Yakutat. So we're not looking for any rapid long-term warm-up or milder temperatures to bring in early spring-like weather. Maybe a little drier than normal out through the southern portion of the Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, the northern parts of the Alaska Peninsula, with precipitation averaging a bit above normal. The Seward Peninsula on up surrounding areas around Kotzebue Sound, and as you get up toward Point Lay and Wainwright. So again, cooler weather than normal here through mid-April.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Let's take a look now at your aviation weather. If you have a flight planned on Sunday or Monday, we expect widespread IFR conditions along areas of the northwest coast. Through the Yukon Valley, either side of the Alaska and Brooks Range, and then out across the Aleutian chain up into the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. Going into Sunday afternoon, the IFR conditions through the Yukon Valley will tend to shrink in coverage as ceilings lift, though there are pockets of snow and lower ceilings there. And then further on toward areas of the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, a frontal system with a triple point passing just north of that area, with the low extending back toward the western Aleutians. As we get into Monday morning, the low will continue to track up toward the central Bering, with the frontal system arcing ahead of it, with IFR conditions pushing in through the southwest coast and creeping up into Kodiak Island and the north end of the Alaska Peninsula. Areas of the inner Panhandle, inner coastal mountains, and especially the eastern parts there could see some IFR Monday morning and and then still rather extensive IFR across areas of the west, central, and northwest interior. And for Monday afternoon, improving conditions across the Panhandle, much of the southeast, but areas here across the southwest, west arm of the Alaska Range, Kodiak Island westward up through the YK deltas all the way back towards St. Matthew. We'll see extensive IFR conditions with pockets of IFR mainly along the western half of the Brooks Range, including portions of the North Slope. So Anaktuvik Pass on Sunday should generally see IFR conditions in place throughout the day. Same thing for Aitken Pass, as we have that moisture, some areas of light snow and lower ceilings. Further south and west, Lake Clark, Merrill, IFR becoming MVFR by midday and afternoon. Same thing, Rainy Pass, IFR in the morning, giving way to MVFR conditions. Windy Pass also, as well as Isabel Pass there. We'll see IFR conditions early on Sunday, giving way to MVFR conditions, and Mentasta Pass should generally hold on to MVFR conditions on Sunday. Tanita Pass will start out with some MVFR conditions, giving way to VFR. And right now, visual flight rules should prevail throughout the day around Portage Pass there and Prince William Sound. And further east, Chilkoot and White in the northern Panhandle will start out VFR, but by Sunday evening, expect IFR conditions to develop there. And freezing levels at the surface run from the central bearing down along the northern half of the Alaska Peninsula, along the outer coast here of the Kenai Peninsula, northern Gulf Coast, coming in through the east side of the inner channels there of the Panhandle. Notice the bump up of freezing levels aloft associated with the frontal system that's going to be pushing eastward across the central eastern Aleutians up into the Alaska Peninsula, and freezing levels as high as 6,000 feet there across the central eastern Aleutians. Greatest threat for considerable moderate icing will be associated with this frontal band along and ahead of it, as high as 10,000 to a flight level of 18,000 feet along and south of the island chain. But to the north in the colder air where there will be snow, this area above 5,000 feet, and then some pockets above 3,000 feet there, especially up through the central interior along the Yukon Valley. And looking at the upper level jet stream winds, we do have a jet core of 150 knots, northwesterly winds aloft at 30,000 feet there over the Gulf, and bringing it down to 700 millibars or 9,000 feet. General northwest flow here from the Seward Peninsula across the southwest portion of the mainland and the western half of the Alaska Range out into the Gulf, 40 to 50 knot northwesterly winds. And then bringing it down further, we can see out over the Gulf, weak low-pressure circulation out in the north-central Gulf. That's in the process of weakening. Broad area of winds 30 to 40 knots out over the Gulf and in the North Pacific. Further west along the frontal band, especially north and northeast of it, we have winds that are out of the southeast to south at about 45 knots. And if we bring that on down to the surface and areas 4,000 feet aloft, we expect a pretty good area of considerable moderate turbulence that extends out here from areas of the central Aleutians up through the eastern Aleutians, southern lower portion of the Alaska Peninsula, surface to 4,000 feet. Then up in and around Kodiak Island, the entrance of Cook Inlet, especially along the Alaska Range east side there, in through around surrounding areas around Cook Inlet, surface to 6,000 feet, and then back up through the interior, lower middle Yukon Valley, surface to 4,000 feet, as well as over areas of the Seward Peninsula and surrounding Kotzebue Sound.
Cadets, and welcome to the Okeanos Explorer. I'm Debbie, and I'm an ocean explorer. I work for NOAA, which stands for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Together with many other people, I work on this ship and we explore the deep sea. How do we do that? Let's go find out.
Octonauts, let's do this. Yow!
The pressure in the ocean is so great humans can't go there, so we send a special robot. Octocadets, meet Deep Discoverer, our special robot for ocean exploration. And this is Chris. He works with Deep Discoverer. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Debbie.
Can you tell us about what Deep Discoverer does?
Sure. So this is Deep Discoverer, and today we're going to take Deep Discoverer up to 4 miles down to the ocean floor so you can see what Deep Discoverer sees.
And how do we do that?
We do that by using these powerful cameras and powerful lights.
That's neat. And what is that?
And this is our manipulator arm, and we use this arm to take biological and geological samples that we store up front in these boxes, and so that we can bring them to the surface so scientists can analyze them.
Wow, isn't that cool, Octocadets? Wow! Now that we know more about the special robot that explores the seafloor, let's find out more about the ship. Octocadets, let's do this. Now let's find out what we do with D2's video. Come along. This is the control room. A lot of things about D2 happen in here. Behind me, you see the pilots. They steer D2 on the seafloor. And over here, we have scientists. Hi, Steve and Stacy.
Hi, this is Steve and I'm Stacy and we are marine biologists.
Can you tell us about the work you do here?
We actually look at the videos collected by the robots and we try to identify organisms along with other scientists on the shore.
What are you looking at right now?
We're actually looking at a sea star.
That's so awesome, thank you. Now let's look at how we make maps of the seafloor.
Excellent, Quasi. A good map helps you to get to places you've never been.
We also have a scientist on board who makes maps of the seafloor. Hi, Derek.
Hi, Debbie.
Can you tell us about your work?
Sure. My job on the ship is to make maps of the ocean floor. We do this by sending sound from the bottom of the ship. It echoes off the seafloor and comes back to the ship. And then from that, we can make maps like this. So this is what it would look like if you were able to drain the water out of the ocean and actually see what the landscape looked like down there. We use these maps to give the vehicles a place to dive, and they explore further, just like Octonauts do.
Status report, Dashi.
We're right on course, Captain.
So earlier we learned that D2 picks things up from the seafloor with his manipulator arm. Let's find out what we do with those samples. This is the wet lab, and Megan spends a lot of time here. Megan, can you tell us about your work?
I am the sample data manager, so when the ROV comes up, we go out and we collect the samples from the ROV and we bring them in here. And we try to record as much information about them as possible, everything from the details about what they look like to the environment conditions where they were found. How cold was it, for example? Then we come in and we take imagery using this microscope, and we take pictures using this camera as well. And then after we get all the pictures taken and we're ready, we prepare them for shipping to other scientists and museums so more science can be done, such as the squat lobster, this cup coral as well.
And what is that?
This is a piece of coral, or several pieces of coral, that we think might actually be a new species. So we are going to send it out for a comparison to existing species to see if we discovered something new.
Wow, you have a really cool job.
Thank you.
Fascinating. I've read about this, but I've never actually seen it.
An important part of how we explore the ocean is keeping in touch with scientists and Octocadets on shore. Let's go see how we do that. Rosemary, could you tell the Octocadets a little about what that dish does?
Sure. My name is Lieutenant Rosemary Abbott. I'm the operations officer aboard the Okeanos Explorer, and that is our VSAT. It stands for Very Small Aperture Terminal, and inside that satellite dome is a very powerful dish antenna that allows us to communicate with shore and share video in real time. The technology is called telepresence.
Wow, that is so interesting. Thank you, Rosemary. Now I'm getting really hungry. Let's go to the kitchen and talk about food. This is the ship's kitchen, also known as the galley. And this is Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Debbie.
Michael is the chief steward on this ship, and he keeps 49 people fed for 3 weeks at a time. Michael, how do you do that?
With a lot of care and with the help of 3 crew members. I have myself, the chief steward, a chief cook, and a second cook. And we just do it with a lot of love and care and make sure that everybody's happy and well fed. We use up to 150 dozen eggs per trip, up to 100 gallons of milk, a lot of veggies and fruits, a lot of snacks. Everybody's very pleased with what we usually put out. We also make sure that we do it in a loving way, in a sanitary way, in a safe way that keeps everybody from getting any tummy aches.
I'm about to enter the ship's bridge. It's like the Octopod's headquarters.
Octonauts to the HQ.
Ahoy, Captain.
Ahoy, Debbie.
Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Octocadets, meet Eric Johnson, the commander of the ship. Eric, can you tell us about what you do up here?
Absolutely. Hello, Octocadets. My name's Eric Johnson. I'm an Corps officer, and I'm the captain of the Okeanos Explorer. Welcome to my office. This is where we drive the ship. This is where we control the operations. We run the propellers that are underneath us in the back to the wheel up here at the front, which is where we steer. It's a pretty cool job. It's very exciting, and it's pretty beautiful around here as well.
So, Octocadets, now you know a little bit about the ship and how we explore the deep sea. I hope you enjoyed our time together. I'll see you next time.
Debbie, safety first.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and we conclude our show with the marine weather segment, starting with the sea ice edge. Ice is still extensive throughout the far north down through the Chukchi Sea, though there have been some polynyas open up along areas of Kotzebue Sound, as well as the south and east side of Norton Sound and around areas of St. Lawrence Island. Further south, the ice extent now is not nearly as far south as it was a couple of weeks ago. It's looking like, based on the ice analysis, that we reached the maximum extent of the seasonal ice back in mid-March. We'll have official confirmation of that coming out within the next week or two. On the edge of the ice now, we see it becoming a little more ragged and certainly melting as possible, and some retrieval to the north as the next frontal system comes in and turns winds around to the southwest, especially along this area south of Nunavik Island. And looking at the interior here in the south east panhandle for the inner channels, winds will be out of the north-northwest around 10 knots on Sunday. Waves a couple of few feet from Lynn Canal down through Stevens Passage and in toward Dixon Entrance. And on the outer coast, winds generally west to northwest, 10 to 15 knots. Waves 5 to as high as 8 feet south of Sitka and west of Craig. For Monday, winds will be still northerly across the inner channels, as high as 20 knots across Lynn Canal, with waves there 3-4 feet. For the outer coast, we have offshore winds, even variable there west of Gustavus. Waves generally running 5 to 6 feet. And for the northwestern Gulf, winds will be strongest at the entrance of Cook Inlet and northeast there of Kodiak. Westerly winds 35-knot gales, waves 9 to 11 feet. Offshore winds 30 knots there on the east side of the Kenai. Northwest winds to 20 knots, 4-foot waves in Prince William Sound. And on Monday, those winds do come down in reverse in Prince William Sound, east at 15 knots, waves couple of few feet. Winds down through lower Cook Inlet will be north, turning northeast to 25 knots at the entrance, with waves there around 6 feet. Across Kodiak Island on Sunday, winds will be west to southwest 20 to 25 knots. Shelikof Strait wave 7 feet. A little bit more of a mix of winds turning back toward the southeast ahead of an approaching frontal system that's working its way out of the eastern Aleutians by late Sunday into Sunday night. Winds will be as high as 20 to even 30 knots there north of Cold Bay with waves right around 4 feet. And then on Monday, winds across Kodiak Island will be east to northeast at about 20 knots with waves 5 to 6 feet there. Frontal system, we're going to have a secondary low developing south of Kodiak Island as we get into Tuesday. The initial kind of wave or triple point along the front is down in this area, and behind it winds turn southwest to 20 knots either side of the peninsula at Cold Bay and south of Falls Pass with waves running 7 feet. Throughout the Aleutians, especially the eastern and central Aleutians, winds will be southeast to south, generally 20-25 knots, waves 7 to 8 feet on the North Pacific side, and 4 to perhaps as high as 7 feet on the Bering side. By the time we get to Monday, frontal system is lifted well northeast of the region and pushed up through the Alaska Peninsula. Winds will turn west to southwest 25 to 30 knots. Waves generally 9 to 12 feet on the North Pacific side and say 7 to 9 feet on the Bering side. Along the southwest coast, ice there is still in place, and over the ice winds will generally be out of the west-northwest 10 to 15 knots, but turn more back toward the east-northeast ahead of that front, 25 to 30 knots from St. Matthew to St. Paul with waves of 6 to 7 feet. And then that front will be approaching the southwest coast and trying to push inland on Monday. Head of it, east winds out of Norton Sound and off the Yukon Delta at 20 knots where there is ice, but where winds do turn southwest 25 knots, 9-foot wave St. Paul. Northeast winds 25 knots there at St. Matthew. And then along the Arctic coast, look for easterly winds around 15 knots, Kaktovik through Utqiagvik. But as we go down along the lower Chukchi, winds will be west to northwest 15 to 20 knots, falling below 15 to near 10 knots south of the Bering Strait. And on Monday, expect winds along the Arctic coast southwest to west 15 knots. And then through the Chukchi, a mix of winds right around 5 to 15 knots, turning northeasterly through the Bering Strait and increasing to 25 knots on the north side of St. Lawrence Island and 20 knots northeasterly there in Norton Sound. So for Sunday afternoon and evening, low pressure crossing the western Aleutians, this frontal system arcing ahead of it through the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. And by the time we get into Monday afternoon, we'll see a secondary low starting to develop south of Kodiak Island with the main low still back toward the central Bering Sea, and this front will be moving inland along areas of the southwest coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.